Let's be familiar with the 3 levels of crime that we have in the United States specifically. The United States breaks crime and its associated penalties into 3 categories. The lowest being infraction. The next one being misdemeanor, and the highest being felony. Specifically talking about how we define those, they're going to be most appropriately defined by their penalties. You can memorize them, but the penalties are what's going to tell you whether or not it's an infraction, a misdemeanor, or a penalty. So going from lowest to highest, infractions for the most part are going to be exclusively penalty driven by fines. You're going to see things like speeding, traffic violations, infractions, some municipal violations or infractions. Administrative violations, one of the examples that we talked about in previous semesters. You'll see certain towns will only allow signage for a business to be a certain size. They don't want huge signs in front of the business. They just think it's an eyesore. So they'll write a law, a municipal code saying you can only have your business sign can only be 10 feet wide. It's 11 feet wide, you get a ticket. That would be an infraction, a municipal infraction. You're not going to go to prison. Nobody's going to Leavenworth for having a sign too big. It's an infraction. Misdemeanors. Next one up. How do we define misdemeanors? Anybody familiar with misdemeanors? Let's hear. What do you think the maximum penalty for misdemeanors?
A year.
I'm sorry?
A year.
A year less, exactly. In general, misdemeanors are defined by incarceration by a year or less, but also they include the infraction penalties. Every one of them is going to include the penalties below it. So a misdemeanor will be a year or less incarcerated, or a fine. Which leaves us felony, which is to be easy by process of elimination. What's the penalty for a felony?
Anything over a year.
There you go. Anything over a year. Also, you can get under a year. Also, you can get a fine. Also, going into this corrections definition, we're going to talk about over a year, under a year. In general, we're going to differentiate jails and prisons that exact same way. Jails, if you are sentenced to an incarceration period of less than 1 year, you'll be sent to a county jail. If you're sentenced to an incarceration period for more than 1 year, you'll be sent to a prison, a state prison. If it's a state violation, federal prison, federal. Prisons more than a year, jails less than a year. Jails also house one other category of inmates that are not sentenced to less than a year. Who knows what that is? There we go. Exactly. He said people waiting for their trial. So as we look at jails, we literally have 2 different kinds of people. We have guilty people and people who aren't yet, or may never be. There are a ton of people in jail right now who are not convicted of crime and may never be. If they're eventually found not guilty, you've now housed the not guilty with the ones who were guilty and sentenced to less than 1 year. It's an interesting concept to consider that they're both housed in the exact same facility. We're going to talk about different ways to avoid that housing. There are release mechanisms in the United States, bail being one of them. But if you cannot afford bail, or you're not afforded the opportunity for bail in some occasions, then you can be housed. Last thing I want to talk about is the crime funnel. All right, so this bar, we're going to say this bar right here represents all the crime in the United States. That's just a ton of crimes. Every crime that's ever committed in the United States in a year, or any period. Does this represent everybody that's in jail right now? Do we have one person in jail for every single one of these crimes? So do we agree there are less people in jail than crimes committed? We have less people in jail than crimes committed. Let's talk about why. First of all, if these are all the crimes that are committed, is every crime reported? Why if a crime is being committed, why aren't they all reported? What are some reasons why crimes aren't reported? We'll start going here. Why do you think? Why do you think that, or do you agree that not all crimes are reported? We'll start there. Okay. What would be a reason why a crime would not be reported? They're scared to report it. Boom. Absolutely. Scared, emotionally. You have something.
In the case that there's no witnesses other than the perpetrator, there would be no reason to self-incriminate.
There you go. Nobody knew that. So there are crimes that nobody knew that a crime occurred. We have crimes like tax evasion. And I mean, it is one that comes to the top of my head. If the IRS didn't catch you evading taxes, only you know you did it. You're the only one. So why would you tell anybody? Good point. So not all crimes are reported. So now we have less. But then, does this represent everybody in jail? No. Got more bars. Let's say this represents all the reported crimes. Every reported crime doesn't have somebody in jail for it. Why not? Yeah. Some people say some people may not be found guilty. Some people may not be caught, right? So we have reported crimes, and then we have crimes that got reported, but we just never found out who did it. Somebody breaks into your car in the middle of the night, and there's no video, no fingerprints. The odds of that person ever being caught is very rare, very small. So we have crimes that are reported, we just never found out who it was. So even less. And we have people that are arrested. Arrested for the crime here. Even less. They actually finally we caught them, we arrested them. We arrested them, but we took the case to the district attorney for filing. District attorney read it and said, you know what, there's just not enough evidence. I don't think I can win this case. We got let them go. Happens all the time. The DA reject, we call it. District attorney just rejects the case. If they don't feel like they can win the case, they can't prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt, they're not even going to try it. They're just going to release the suspect. So even less. Then people go to trial. And like I said, sometimes they're found not guilty. Even less in jail. And then, although there's a few more bars, there's folks that maybe they went to trial, but not everybody who gets found guilty goes to jail. What are some other options besides going to jail? I'm sorry? Plea bargain? Yeah, you can plea bargain to probation. You can plea bargain to a fine. There's a ton of things that you could plea bargain to, or there are several things that you could plea bargain to that would result in you not going to jail. So at the end, what the concept I'm trying to show is that regardless of this as the number of crimes that were committed in the United States, the number of people who actually end up in the correctional system is much, much less. And those are the reasons why, there's several reasons why we pare it down from a great number of crimes being committed to a far less number of people going to jail.